what are we going to be cooking today?
Basically a seafood risotto with fried hake. So basically going to fry off the onions in the pan with lots of butter.
So what were you diagnosed with to begin with?
Osteosarcoma in my right hand knee.
Wow.
Yeah, well, femur, so slightly above the knee. Right, so basically I was snowboarding in France in 2015 with lads' holiday. So basically a group, six of us went out. And had a bit of an incident with a skier in the middle of it and fell and hurt myself. Thought I had chipped a bone or broke my leg or something like that. So walked about in crutches for about 2 weeks. Came home and we were like, something wrong here. Yeah. So went to A&E and they x-rayed it, told me there was nothing wrong and away you go. So referred me for a physio. So decided, right, I'll go and have a look, see what I can do. Went private. And the physio basically told me that there was nothing wrong ligament-wise. She didn't think there was anything broke. I thought there was something else wrong. So it was actually, she referred me, she says, go back to your doctor and ask for an MRI. So went to the doctor, I was like, been to physio privately, and you know what doctors like, it's like, it's nice. Nice I didn't have to pay for that, you paid it for yourself, you know. So referred me and said, right, we can probably go private. That's your best bet, because it was 40 weeks for an NHS one.
Oh, wow.
I could have had a weigh-in at that time, like. So went that afternoon and went to Ballykelly, got my MRI scan, sent it back to the doctor, and 4 days later I was called up to go to Altnagelvin for the reading of it.
Just before we continue, what is it we're doing here?
Right, so basically fried off the onions until everything is basically see-through.
Here, the butter's worked really well in that.
Oh, awesome.
I wouldn't have thought of using butter ever.
Awesome. You give you heart disease, that mountain butter, like, but all in that it tastes good. And then basically a couple of risotto rice, hung it in over the top of that, and then just basically toss it about until all the grains of rice have basically been coated in the oil. You'll see them also go clear or clearer than they are.
Yeah.
So flick them about, and then once you have that done, you have to then start and slowly add in your stock.
Okay.
Now obviously stock, all I have is ordinary stock cubes.
What stock cubes do you use? Chicken stock or
It's
vegetables?
chicken stock. Okay. So went up to Altnagelvin, and they brought me in and basically sat me in a wee room, wee chair with the guy who had read it, and my two legs obviously were up on the wall, and he points at this black bit. He says, you know,
that's not meant to be there.
Shouldn't be there, like that's a bit nasty. He says, don't know what it is. Worst case scenario, he says it's nasty like, and he says worst case you'll lose it from there down. I was like, oh, that's not cool. Like I do auto tests and rallies and stuff like that, and you need both legs to be honest to drive, like. So he says, right, we'll book you in for a biopsy, put you up in for a CT assisted biopsy, and that was actually in Musgrave. That's quite funny because but like Simon, the two guys that done the biopsy are twins.
Oh my word.
So these two guys
That would have been so trippy.
Oh, it's weird. These two guys were literally working away, and you look across and it's like, it's mirror image. It was a bit strange, like, but they took.
Whenever you're already on anaesthetic, I suppose that would be a really weird experience.
Well, they literally just injected me. Injected me.
With mine as well, actually.
I just
injected me.
Just
right in my chest.
Just local, like, froze you up and then put this spike down in and start taking a wee bit out of your bone, like. So they passed you in out to the machine a couple of times and took the biopsy and sent it away, and it was 10 days. I think it goes across to Birmingham or some of them wonderful spots. Like
that wait is horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not. It's knowing what's coming or what's not coming. Like, so then they come back and basically brought me back up to say that it was an osteosarcoma, which supposedly isn't actually that common. So they brought me in, and obviously I went into the cancer centre, and they basically said, right, you're going for your PIC line, you know. So that was an experience underneath a bed sheet, you know. And then starting to hook around and find out where this thing goes into your heart, like. So it's not cool. They put this big sheet over you, and you're looking out through this wee silly window, you know. But they put it in, and then I started my chemo that evening once the bloods came back, like. So they gave me that evening, about 4 o'clock. It takes that long for the bloods to come back, like. So basically, I started chemo, and they gave me 20 weeks of chemo, different bits and pieces. Some weeks you were in for 3 or 4 days. Some days you were in for the week. Just depends on what chemo you were getting, you know.
Did you struggle with staying in hospital? That's something that
No.
I was going to be here, just want me in bed.
It wasn't actually too bad.
You probably love getting pampered.
The food's horrible, like.
Really? Do you think
Oh,
so? Well,
shocking.
to be honest, every time I was in hospital, I just munched out on toast.
Oh no.
Toast and a cup of tea.
I had my mum. My mum brought everybody in back and forward and brought me cheese. So I lived on brie and meals from homemade, you know, like either pasta or stuff like that, and then
Good for the student and all that.
and then into like ready meals like pastas and bakes and stuff like that there. But it was different, like, but it's not the food just, and why they serve. I know I'm serving fish here, like, but why they serve fish in a hospital is beyond me, like.
Smell and everything.
Smell of there wasn't a room you could get away from it, like, just the smell of fish everywhere, like.
So
But-
you had 20 weeks of chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So how was that experience? Because everyone seems to have different experiences. I mean, your chemo was different than mine.
Yeah. So I
How did
had
it make you feel?
sick.
Yeah.
Sick because I had about 2 weeks, and then obviously hair and eyelashes and eyebrows and all the stuff all started to fall out, as a lot of people do with it.
Yeah.
And then obviously sickness. Some of the chemos were worse than others, like. Some of them just make you sick. Some just are grand, you know. It just. But then they had this wonderful one that was an immune enhancer, or immune system, something or other, which I can't name.
I don't have a clue either, to be honest.
I know what it's called, but I can't say what it was, like.
The contraptions to try to boost your...
I basically try and get your immune system to fight whatever it is.
Could have been a steroid or something.
Something like that, but it didn't agree with me at all. Like,
Oh.
it actually put you into like fits, you know, and made you go all like rigidity in the bed, like. So after about 2 or 3 runs of that, just decided I didn't want to have that anymore and declined having it, like.
Yeah.
It wasn't doing any good at all, like. So that actually had brought me down at the point you were collapsing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it was grand. All the other stuff was grand. Like, it was the smell got me. You know, like when you sweated, you know, you could smell the chemo. Like, it's basically killing your insides to let it grow back again. Like, which is fair enough. You can see what they do and why they do it. Like, but I had my chemo obviously to reduce it down, and then went to Musgrave for the op. So basically, they were going to put an implant in instead of taking the leg off. They went for the implant. It wasn't a relief until you sign all the bits to say, yeah, you're happy enough that if it all goes wrong, you can chop it off, you know.
Oh, no.
And the big arrow and all on your leg to say this is definitely the one you want to work at. Like, it's waking up and not being able to move your legs, you know, because obviously you're on a complete, you know, like a spinal block, you know, to stop you moving your legs and stuff after it. So you wake up and you're paralysed from the waist down, you know, completely from the belly button down, like completely dead. They basically kept going in, you know, they run like ice cubes, like up your leg, you know, to try and see where the feeling's coming back and how, and then they track it, you know, just basically to see how it's all wearing off, and eventually, obviously, it comes back, like. But I mind looking down and trying to move your toes. And I was like, right, I'm trying to move my left foot. It's like looking at your feet, you know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the foot just sort of waved. I was like, it's not what I asked you to do. Like, try to go and just this thing waving, you know. But eventually all came back. It was grand, but he had to start and learn, you know, walk again, and it just wasn't cool. Like, a lot of your balance is all felt through your knees. People don't realise it, but a lot of knowing how you balance is felt through your knee. And obviously because I don't have that feeling anymore, you have to then work off your toes and the bottom of your feet, which is just a different way of working it. So your balance is a wee bit funny, plus you don't feel anything at all. Like literally down that side, my right side at all, from the leg, you don't feel anything. Because obviously the scar is about that length. Anything to that side of the scar is gone, because they have to cut it. Put me in a, what they call an extended knee, which is stainless steel, a big bit that's sort of spiked up inside your leg, you know. So I went back into the city hospital again, into the cancer centre for the last 20 weeks. So another 20 weeks of what they classed it as mopping it up. So they were happy enough, you know, they got clear margins of around the tumour, but then obviously they just give you another blast of chemo to try and make sure it's all gone. Like when you put it all together and you end up in hospital for nearly a year, it's not, don't get me wrong, you meet people, plenty of people along the way. Like,
What age were you when this was all happening to you?
I was 24,
Wow.
which is a good enough thing.
Age now.
I literally just scraped in as what the class is a young adult. If I was 25 or 26, the support you get is completely different. Like under the 25 mark, is obviously sore on younger people because you're depriving them of obviously growing up for a certain period of time. But for an older person, they have a lot more responsibilities and things that they have to still make, you know, bills and people depending on them, whereas young people don't. But it just hits people in different ways, which is a different, you know, sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not, it just depends. Like.
Yeah. I think it very much depends on the support at home as well. I think people like myself, I didn't have very much support at home, so having people like Helen and Simon from Cancer Cookalong and Young Lives vs Cancer was a lifeline.
Oh, definitely.
And an absolute lifeline, especially for me and for numerous other young people that I've chatted to. But how did your family deal with everything?
In all honesty, it was, at the time, it was just get it done, you know. Now, my mum obviously took the whole time off work, so she would have come down sort of lunchtime every day and sat. Now, whether she was reading a book and I was doing something else, it didn't make a difference, but she was there, you know. And then obviously my dad would have come down at night and they would have swapped over, and then he would have stayed on to whatever time, 10 o'clock when they kicked everybody out, like. But it is a strange experience in hospital, like. But no, the family was grand, like, but it was more coming after hospital and after it was all done, how it had impacted everybody is more where it was a problem, you know. It doesn't really hit everybody what's going on until it's done, like. At the start, it literally was just slowly get back into work, you know, and then try and just ease yourself back into life as such. It was getting active again, you know. Obviously steroids, most people would know, they blow you up like the Michelin Man, like. It's not cool, like, but no, they do blow you up. It's shocking. I got back into it, sort of going swimming. So swimming is where I started off with the whole thing, just going swimming to try and get my leg built up again, because obviously
It's quite easy on the joints, it's very little impact.
yeah, it's easy on everything because obviously you're lying flat too, so it's easier on your heart, like. But then obviously Simon had started up at the time the Move Forward program, so it was basically trying to introduce people through into CrossFit. But obviously it didn't start off as just a program as such. It started off as like more a sort of university sort of collaboration to see how it affected people. So as I had started off with that, and it was based here in Belfast. So I would have come down on a Sunday for a couple of weeks to you do like tests. So do your test to see how fit you are at the time. And then you put through like a 10-week program of CrossFit and exercise to try and bring everybody together and try and boost your fitness. And then after that, you then were retested again to see how you had improved. Like, but that was.
It's almost like, do you remember in school doing the bleep test? Do you remember
This is so much worse. This is so much worse. It's fine. It's a bleep test is just you and yourself. It's
No,
when you
it's
have.
not. I had to do it against my whole class.
I know, but you don't have Simon shouting at you.
Oh no, I know.
Like, and
Why are they chatting like
he can be nasty. Like, I tell you, like, he really can be nasty.
Sometime soon.
Anyway, so adding the prawns in, so you're about 10 minutes from basically finishing the whole thing off, And then the next one I would normally put in at the end here is frozen peas. And again, put them all in just at the end, and they only need about 10 minutes to sort of warm through and cook. Obviously prawns don't take an awful lot of time. Like.
So tell me this, have you got back to the slope since?
Nope, I haven't got back. I have...
Any plans to?
I'd love to go back. I really would love to go back. It'd be good to go back to slopes, don't get me wrong. It's a really good holiday, but I've been converted to cruising now. It's really good. So basically, when I had left, obviously, my treatment, so I was obviously, before I'd started treatment, I was navigating for a guy that does target rallies. So I was doing his navigator, and then basically, obviously when I had took a year of a holiday to go to the cancer centre, he obviously got a replacement.
Aww.
So his replacement was a woman from the Moy, not that far from him actually, but he was telling her all these stories about, you know, this amazing person that was getting treatment, basically being sort of Cupid at the time. So Grace, who's now my wife, was actually doing his navigating at the time. So when I got out of treatment, obviously, I had said that I would, you know, meet up where, and so we went for ice cream one night, but I was like a sprouting potato, you know, bald head, you know, the fur was starting to come back. It wasn't really that cool, like, I'll never live it down, like, so our first date was actually in a place in Armagh, and I had done an auto test that day, and then went home, had a Chinese, and then went out on my date, and couldn't eat anything because I was so full. So I still brought up to this day, like, but it was Grace and me that went on the cruise, and both of us now are...
These are cruisers?
Oh, without a doubt, like...
Where did you cruise?
Caribbean. Western Caribbean.
Do you know what's even the thought of a holiday right now?
It's like...
I can feel the sun on my face just to talk about it.
It's the Instagram following all the cruisers and all that there, and you just see it, and then you're like, I wish I could go back. You know, I really wish I could go back.
Be able to.
Oh, it'll all go back to normal at some point.
So when did you meet Grace? So you met Grace after you finished treatment?
So I finished on Valentine's Day 2016.
Oh, it was meant to be.
Hey, that's where I finished. So I walked out, and I went then.
That's your anniversary?
It was that horrible word. That's a terrible statement. Like, but yeah, that's when it all. So 8th of June was the start, and then February. So February the year after was actually the end of it. Like, so it was good, but it was different. So when obviously February, it was end of February then that I had obviously met Grace and went out and had our dates and stuff like that. And July 2019, we got married.
Do you know what's crazy? See, if you hadn't have got cancer, you probably wouldn't have met Grace.
That is the truth. Probably wouldn't have. Never really thought about it that way.
Do you know, I think it's so interesting. Everything it really does happen for a reason. And
It does.
great things can come out of something that's so hard and traumatic.
It's a bit like that cloud and silver lining type thing, like, isn't it?
I love a good silver lining.
So I said it is. It's when people start to tell the story, they sort of like, I go, really? It's like, no, that is genuinely how it was, like. The risotto's nearly finishing. We're gonna fry the fish. So it's hake. I have only had hake a few times, so I used to make this. This is actually, my mother will kill me because I have never liked fish in my entire life. And it's only now that obviously I'm going and trying different things, obviously, because when you get married and you live with somebody else, obviously you have to try everything. Like,
My palate has improved.
it changes. Like, I drink wine, I've tried beer, you know, I'll try all things now. I'm not that worried about it. Like, hake now is much better to fry than used to be cod. Cod literally falls apart, whereas hake doesn't. That should take about 3 minutes aside, 3 to 4 minutes. You don't want to go too mad and you don't want to go undercooked because obviously nobody wants to have undercooked fish. Like, getting hooked. My problem was, you know, because obviously you're on a pump most of the time, and you know, every 4 hours or 6 hours it was beeping and playing a wee tune to say, I need more chemo, you know, and then obviously someone was coming in hooking you and unhooking you and changing the bag and going again. But it was just, that was the thing I tried to deal with the worst. You know, it was lying in bed at night and then going, oh, you rolled over and you kink a pipe or something and then it blocks, and it just, that's where I had it's not really the best design for what it does. You know, it sort of jingles on your arm and stuff like that there, and I've had, like, the sleeve's grand until, you know, even when you're walking you can feel it rubbing, and then obviously you're still left with your nice wee scars. The chemo experience was bad, but it wasn't something I wouldn't do again. You know, I always said that if it came around and I could have exactly the same thing again with exactly the same outcome, I would do it again. Like, I wouldn't worry about having a year in hospital and doing it all again. Like, hair loss obviously for a guy is completely different. You know, it hits a woman a lot harder, obviously without hair, because men's hair do they really care that much about the hair? Not really. You know, that was the first time I got mine trimmed back. And obviously the woman from Macmillan came up. She said, "Oh, yeah, I'll cut it down for you." You know, it's like, but I can only cut it to 3. I was like, "Can you not just cut it off?" Because she was cutting something that was at a 4, like it wasn't that long anyway. Yeah. She'd given me a trim. It's like, I want it off. Yeah. It's like, no, I can't. I can only take it so far. Like, I was like, right, okay. So you had to wait till you know, Mum come up that night, give me my trimmer and literally trim it all off, like. But it's just maintaining it. That's all it is.
Yeah. So
right?
That's nearly done.
We are done. Ready
You know
to
what? It smells incredible.
plate it up onto the imaginary plate.
So guys, that is us. We are plating up our risotto.
Yeah.
That's what you call it, isn't it?
It is.
Risotto.
Yeah, so that's us basically finished up seafood risotto and
It looks fabulous.
salted chili hake.
Taste it. But here, I just want to say thank you so much for
No problem at all.
sharing your experience with us today. I feel like I've got so much more insight into your story, and
Likewise.
It's so commendable to be able to come up here and just be like, this is what happened and this is how I dealt with it. But thank you so much, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So make sure you stay tuned for our next video.